Have you been stumped with ideas on custom quilting? Join us today. We're going to talk about this great project we've partnered with shabbyfabrics.com. Welcome to Watch and Learn. I'm Kim Sandberg and
I'm Kristina Whitney.
And today we are Chief Custom Quilting people.
Sure, chiefs.
Chiefs.
Like, what else starts with the C?
Chiefs.
Wait, you said chief at the beginning, didn't you?
I did.
Oh.
We're professional quilters. How about that today?
That works.
We're professional quilters today. We are both professional quilters. So, Kristina, custom quilting. I feel like this is a phone call, a question we get all the time. How do you tackle a quilt with custom quilting? Well, we have some great friends at shabbyfabrics.com, Jennifer and Tammy, who recently came and hang out with us a few days in the studio, didn't they?
They did. Super fun.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed our time with them. And they asked if they could send a quilt to us and have us quilt it that they are going to be featuring on their website. So the quilt behind us is this quilt. The pattern is called Medallion Star. It is a free pattern. It is from Robert Kaufman. And you'll be able to purchase kits with this exact same fabric from shabbyfabrics.com. Plus, they're going to be doing something a little extra with that too, aren't they, Kristina? They're going to have available.
I think they're going to have a fun little kit put together.
Yep, so that you can quilt it just like this if you want to. Same thread, all of those good things. So today, you are going to walk us through how you decided to quilt this quilt.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's jump right in.
Okay.
What I did was I printed out a picture
Okay.
of the quilt top and put it in my sheet protector. I actually have it sitting right here.
I'm gonna say this is often. I always know Kristina's working on a new project when she's got one of these out on her desk.
When the sheet protector comes out, you know that's what's going on.
Yep.
But I just took some markers and drew on this just to try to get some inspiration and think of what I wanted to do. And then as I was designing, I wrote down kind of the designs that I was using.
Oh.
So I did a continuous curve, some stitch in the ditch, a background fill, some stars, and I pretty much just continued those designs throughout the entire quilt to kind of keep it cohesive.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's see some of the supplies that I used and the actual quilting.
And Kristina filmed a lot of this herself while she was quilting, so we're in for a real treat.
So this is the Medallion Star quilt, and I used 2 layers of batting with this one. So you can see the bottom layer was an 80-20, and the top layer was a wool. So that gives me a little bit more definition with the quilting. The next one, I've got them both laid down, and then I'm ready to do my plumb line and get the quilt top all lined up. And then we're gonna go ahead and get it loaded.
Oh, it's a gorgeous quilt.
Okay, I had to choose the thread colors that I wanted to use. So we kind of did this by committee, and I chose a Magnifico that is a gold color, so it looks like the metallic, which brings out the gold in the quilt top.
Yeah.
Then I also used a white micro quilter, which would hide in the quilt, but yet create definition.
Okay.
So you'll see me kind of switch back and forth between the different threads, depending on what part of the quilt I'm working on.
Okay.
And with the bobbin, I just used a color that matched the top color, so a white or a gold color in a 60 weight thread.
Okay. And you're using pre-wound bobbins there, I see.
Oh, yes. Love my pre-wounds. Okay, so I've got it loaded, and the first thing I did was some stitch in the ditch, just kind of stabilizing everything. So I got it in the borders, and I went throughout the quilt and did all of the different borders. So that was quick and easy. Luckily, the ditch side was on the white side, so the white thread just kind of melted in there. Just keep it all straight.
Very nice. Now, are you using channel locks or anything like that here? Or are you just kind of making it happen?
So I used the gears on my Pro Stitcher. So they were engaged, but I was not actually using a channel lock.
Gotcha.
Okay. So then the next thing that I did was, again, stitch in the ditch, but I went around all of these little stars.
Mm-hmm. And I see you're using a ruler here. What ruler did you use?
So this one is the Baby Grand, and I used a couple different rulers throughout the quilt, just depending on what I was doing. And you'll notice I've also got my Surefoot on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see this, but I've also got my ruler base on underneath.
Right.
So that helps me keep everything where it's supposed to be.
So you're outlining these, creating some definition, and what did you do next?
Okay, so we are going to show you a picture of what it looked like once the stitch in the ditch was completed.
Okay.
So that's just creating that initial stabilizing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went ahead and did the same thing around the large star
Okay.
and the triangle pieces as well. And you can see that ruler work is not a fast process. A lot of the video is going to be in time lapse, so it'll be sped up, but just realize that it does take a little bit of time to do ruler work. You want to be precise, but you also want to be safe.
Exactly. Now I see that you're just working through doing the stitch in the ditch. Are you doing any additional stabilizing on the quilt as you're working your way through it this first time?
So in the big center section, the big star, I actually did some basting stitches through that section because I wasn't doing a lot of the stabilizing in the center.
Okay.
So as I was advancing down, I did do some basting in there.
Okay.
Okay, once I got the stitch in the ditch done, I did all the borders, I did the little stars. I went back and changed my thread. So I'm now going to use the metallic thread, and I'm going to create an echo around the stars. So you can see here I'm using one of the slice rulers and just echoing 1/4 inch around the stars.
Just to give them a little extra pop in definition.
Yep. It divides the background white space from the star, so gives the eye just, you know, a little place to rest there. And it's always important to keep your quilt top clean. Clip those threads, put them in the garbage.
Or you can be like me and just throw them on the floor and run your Roomba later.
Well, I don't have a Roomba at home, and I'm on carpet at home also. So I get in really bad habits at work when I throw it on the floor, and then I go home and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. I've got to put it in the garbage can. So that's what it looks like when all of the stars have been defined with that Magnifico. You can see that there. It's the 2068. It's one of my favorites. Now we've got kind of this weird shape, the kind of the triangles and then the white space. So you can see on the Pro Stitcher screen, I put a star in there with a channel lock, leaving some space, and I used the gold thread to stitch this out.
Okay. I like how you extend it from that white, the negative space essentially, into the printed space. It's kind of a nice little surprise that you see when you get up close to the quilt.
Yeah, you don't really notice it until you're up really close, but it was fun. So it's just stitching the outside, and then it'll pause and then come in and do another one inside to create a channel. And when we get later on in the quilt, you'll kind of see what we did with that as well.
You're so good to clip that thread. I would have just moved it over and called it good. How big of a channel did you do?
1/2 inch, I believe.
Okay. I love those channels. I feel like they, especially when you're trying to do ghost quilting or making a little bit of a statement quilting on the quilt. How many times can I use quilt in a sentence? It really makes it pop. Okay, now wait, it looks like you've changed your foot here.
Okay, I am now going to work in the center star.
Okay.
So I've got to remove some of that basting as I'm working here. And I'm going to do a continuous curve throughout all of these little pieces.
Okay.
Now, keeping my pattern straight was a lot of fun. There were some spots where I had to go back, but if you figure out your pattern, you can usually do all of this without having to stop.
Yeah, finding that path when you're doing continuous curve. I feel like sometimes it helps you stay really engaged while you're quilting because you gotta think so you don't quilt yourself into a corner, right?
Exactly. Look how fast I can stitch. So you'll notice that I didn't do anything with the very center star. We're going to play with that a little bit later on.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on, we are now in the flying geese border.
Okay.
And I'm using the curvy ruler to do a continuous curve throughout the white sections of the flying geese. Now, we did a continuous curve in the star, we're doing a continuous curve here. So again, we talked earlier about using the same elements and repeating them throughout to give a little bit of continuity. So I went all the way across the top, and then I'm gonna come back and catch the other two sides of those triangles. I really like this curvy ruler because it's got two different arcs, so I can keep the depth of the continuous curve the same on the long side as the short side of the triangles.
I think that's something people tend to forget is you do have that one longer side of the triangle. And yeah, if you use the same curve, it's going to look different.
Yep. So just continuing on, and again, I'm using the white micro thread on this part.
Okay.
So yeah, changing threads back and forth, lots of fun.
Now, why did you choose to do rulers here and on the other part you did free motion?
Well, because this part's going to show a little bit more.
Okay.
Because the quilting in the white or a solid definitely shows a lot more than in a print.
Okay.
So if you look closely at the quilt when it's done, you'll see the stitching in the white, but the continuous curve stitching just kind of blends. So I wasn't as concerned with it being as precise.
That makes sense. When you want precision, use a ruler.
Moving on, we are going to do some background fills in the white section now.
Okay.
Around the stars. So what I did was I looked at the fabric and I tried to pull some different shapes out of the print that I wanted to incorporate into this background fill. So these were my doodles and just kind of giving me some ideas of basic shapes that I want to incorporate together.
I like those.
Okay, let's see some stitching here. And again, I'm going to use the white micro quilter thread, and you'll notice I've got my microfoot on.
Right.
I really like using this microfoot because I have such good visibility and I can see what I'm doing. So I'm doing like some little swirls and some hooks and just whatever just happened to come out of my hands at that moment.
What fits in the space, right?
Yep. The goal there was just to fill in the space. You're not going to see the thread, but you are going to see the texture because of that double batting that we used.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I love this. Everything you've done so far has felt very structured. You've done a lot of straight lines, and to do this super curvy, flowy background fill here, I think it's such a great compliment.
Yeah, just definitely changes things up a little bit. Yeah, so I did this throughout all of the remaining white space that hadn't been stitched in. Okay, that's the background fill.
Oh, gorgeous.
Isn't that fun? I think the best part is that my notes were still sitting up there.
I love that. Well, you got to stay on track.
Exactly. Okay, now I'm going to continue that, but doing it on the inside of those stars that we created. So there's the 4 stars that we had the 4 sides, fill those centers, and then we've got one more star to work on. Okay, last star. This is the very center, and I did stitch in the ditch around the star, and I'm using that gold thread again, and I'm using the skinny ruler. And after I get done doing the stitch in the ditch, I also came back and created a channel. So it's very similar to the other stars that I did, but the others I did with Pro Stitcher. So this way is just showing another way that you can do the same thing, but using rulers instead of the Pro Stitcher. Okay, change to the microfoot, and I'm doing that same fill, but in the center of the star using gold Magnifico this time, rather than the white. And then once that is done, the whole center is done, and I think there's only one section that I have left to do.
Let's see. Is it that outside border?
I think it's the outside border, and here we go.
Oh, look at you.
Now this was a really tricky one. I'm just gonna talk while we watch this stitching for a moment.
Okay.
Trying to think of what to do here was really hard because this fabric is so bold and busy that I didn't really feel like anything would show on here. So talking with the rest of the studio educators, Denise suggested that I just kind of follow or outline the existing pattern. So that's what we're doing. I just took that same gold thread and got my microfoot on, and I just kind of did, not count by number, but just following the lines. Quilt by number.
There you go.
Yeah, so I just followed the lines of the fabric design, just all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the fabric is so busy that you don't really see the stitching, but you can see the definition of it.
It really pops, and I think this is a place where deciding to use the 2 layers of batting, like, kudos on that, because even though this is a place, like you said, normally you wouldn't see the quilting, when you get up close, you really see it because of that extra loft.
Yep, that is true. Yep, so I had a lot of fun with this one. Just kind of, you didn't have to think at all. You just kind of followed the lines. And yeah, there was some back stitching because I had to get back to the next section or traveling along the ditch. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. So continue that, and once the border was done, then the quilt was done, trimmed it up, and that's it.
Way to execute a custom quilting plan.
Thank you.
Boy, that was fun.
And that's how you custom quilt.
Basically. Oh, Kristina, that was so much fun, just following you on that journey, seeing how, I especially love how you took a couple of very simple motifs and repeated them throughout the quilt. Just pulls everything together, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's less things to think of, less things that you need to practice, and it just makes things cohesive. So
exactly.
Yep. Now the video that we watched didn't take very long. The actual quilting took a little bit more time, so it does take time to do the custom quilting, but I think in the long run, it's worth it.
I totally agree. Well, we want to say thank you again to our friends Jennifer and Tammy at shabbyfabrics.com. If you are interested in purchasing one of these, the kit for this quilt, be sure to visit their website. We want to thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and have fun quilting.